Hello and welcome to the Daily Royal. My name is Shelby and I have been a royal watcher for the past 10 years. In this podcast, I talk about the daily events of 7 of the European monarchies. So I talk about Belgium, the UK, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, and Sweden. I upload Monday through Friday with occasional bonus episodes here and there. Today we are going to be talking about all of the events from Wednesday, May 19th of 2021. There was a lot today, so we're really just going to jump in and get started with this episode. I don't have a lot of commentary other than yay, things are going okay this week. So anyway, we are just going to jump in and start right with the Belgian royal family. When I say we have a lot going on today, I mean Belgium alone had 3 events, and it's pretty rare for them to have more than one big thing that I can actually talk about. And there's three things that I would like to actually talk about. So that's why we're just jumping right in. So we'll start with King Philippe's schedule first. So today he partook in a guided field trip, essentially, with a group of 5th year primary students. So that would put them at probably 10 to 12 range. I'm not exactly sure how old you are when you're in 5th year or year 5, but 10 to 12 roughly. And so they are doing, with the city of Brussels and some outside organizations, they're holding, these guided nature walks, essentially. And so one of them today was held at the grounds of Castle Laeken, which is King Philippe's residence. And I think where most of, their day-to-day work is done. He does still do a lot at the Royal Palace too, but for the most part it's all done at Laeken, especially right now. So that was his first thing. And then later at, again, Castle Laeken, King Philippe and Queen Mathilde took part in an audience with the Belgian Model UN team, so I was not in Model UN in school. We didn't have one. At least to my knowledge, we didn't have one. I highly doubt we had one. We were not focused on diplomacy or international anythings. So I highly doubt we did. And I love this and also find it so ironic. So this team is the 7th team, I believe, in a row to win for Belgium, to which I, as a bystander, just say, of course Belgium is winning. So for those who don't know, Belgium is kind of like the epicenter of Europe. You would think it would be somewhere else, but it's Belgium. So Belgium holds the EU. Belgium holds NATO. The NATO allied commander is based in Brussels. And all of the non-governmental organizations that work really closely with the EU are hosted out of Brussels. So there's a lot happening in that country at all times. I don't think you can go a day without a foreign visitor, an important foreign visitor. Just that we've talked about, Tony Blinken has been there recently, who's the U.S. Secretary of State. King Abdullah of Jordan was there before the Israel-Palestine conflict that started, but right after the coup attempt in Jordan. There's a lot that always is happening. And so when you see all of that every day, because it's part of your everyday culture, it is reinforced the importance of diplomacy and having these conversations And so that's what it was. And of course, Belgium won because they have this in front of them every single day, which I think is, of course, really important. Also, if I had to, like, relive, I never want to do this, but, like, if I could relive my high school without all the trauma that just being in high school brings, I would definitely join a school that had a Model UN class. Like, for sure. Or group, or whatever. Like, definitely. That sounds really fun. So that was the second thing. And then also today, King Philippe and Queen Mathilde visited a hospital in Brussels, called, I think, the Jesse Ziekenhuis, where they were, of course, focusing on the impact of COVID, with employees, but then they also visited this really cool initiative hosted at the hospital called Babel Bank, which is a really cool place for elderly people to come and, like, have chats, and as a way to combat against the social isolation and loneliness that has always been a problem, but has just now come to the forefront since the pandemic. Because all of a sudden you took away their option to have relatives visit, and to be frank, probably a lot don't. Well, okay, I'm from the States where we're, like, inherently selfish people, so maybe in Belgium they did, but then they couldn't, and so senior citizens were getting extremely lonely during the quarantine. So there were things to be put in place to help combat that. I know there was one, and I don't think it was in Belgium, I think it was in the Netherlands. One nursing home, like, created kind of an outdoor space. So, like, the resident had to be, like, inside this really cute, like, tiny house. It wasn't even a tiny house. It was, like, a playhouse type of space. And then their family were, like, outside or, like, nearby. And so that's how they were able to spend time together. And I thought that was a really cool, and this was kind of in the throes of, like, what Europe called the second wave. Like, US was in their throes of, like, the third or fourth wave, but Europe was, like, solidly in their second wave. So I thought that was really cool. Also, I think Queen Mathilde does, like, clothing very well, but it's not very often that I enjoy her clothes. Like, they're just not my style. They're very, not old-fashioned, but kind of. Like, they're just a little more matronly than I would like. But this dress today, I was very impressed with. So anyway, that is what was going on today in Belgium. So now let's go head over to the UK. We have an incredibly busy day in the UK today, so we're just, again, jumping right in. Queen Elizabeth continued receiving credentials, so today she received the credentials from the new ambassador from Argentina to the Court of St. James, as well as the High Commissioner for Canada. So I think the High Commissioner is someone sent by the government of Canada to represent. So they're like an ambassador, but because Canada is part of the Queen's realm, like she is the Queen of Canada, then I think they just have a different title. I'm not sure. There could still be a secondary ambassador. I didn't do a ton of research on this, so I'm not entirely sure what the situation is there. And then earlier today, an announcement was made by Buckingham Palace that Princess Beatrice and her husband, Eduardo Mapelli Mozzi, are pregnant with their first baby. Beatrice is pregnant, and so they will be parents. And then the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall continued on the second day of their visit to Northern Ireland. I'm going to say this, and then I'll read through all the events, because I think it's really important to talk about the organizations that they visit and additional, like, anecdotes if I find them or anything like that. However, their tours are so predictable that I can, like, I know exactly what's going to happen before I see what's actually happening on, like, social media, because they're so predictable. So, together, they started off by visiting a market, like an open air market, farmer's market, whatever you call them, in County Down, to focus on, like, organically grown fruits and vegetables. And then their agenda separated. So Charles today visited a landmark lighthouse in County Down, and he also visited upcoming, like, building development projects in County Tyrone, as well as a children's football club in County Tyrone. So a children's football club is exactly what it sounds like. It is, sometimes they're hosted at schools, sometimes they're like hosted a little more privately, and they are ways for all children in the UK to basically become indoctrinated into football, aka soccer if you're American, culture. It's not as serious as that. Like, they're not actually, I mean, they are, but, like, it's fun, and sport is good. I have no problem with, like, enrolling children in extracurricular sports. So when I was growing up, the first thing you could sign up for in the US was soccer. And so I did, or my mom did. Like, I was signed up for soccer. I did not flourish in that environment. I definitely sat in the grass and picked, like, dandelions. Like, that was the thing I did. I was that child. I did do, like, softball in early middle school, but then, like, didn't really do sport in high school. But, like, it was a great way to get some activity in and, like, have something, like, so I think it's great, but some kids will go for it and some kids won't, and I think there's also, like, a different culture, like, in the UK, like, yes, you will be a soccer fan or a football fan, I'm sorry. It is very weird having two names for a sport. And also because, like, I, as an American, relate more to football as American football. It's really weird for me still to call European football. I try, but I'm always just really bad at it. So anyway, that was really cute. They were older kids, but it was still, I don't really feel like we, especially in the past year and a half now almost, I haven't seen Charles interact with a lot of kids, and he is really good at it. And so that's always, awesome to see. So those were Charles's events, and then the Duchess of Cornwall visited a couple of different organizations. So the first was Kilcooley, which is a private, like private organization, nonprofit organization that provides services to vulnerable women. So mostly related around domestic violence, which is Camilla is patron of at least one, if not a couple, of domestic violence organizations, and they're one of her, like, primary, so the ones she works with the most, so, that's always good. Like, that she goes to other countries or to other parts of the UK and will highlight. I don't mean that domestic violence is good. I definitely don't mean that. I mean, it's good that she highlights the work that organizations are doing. And then Finally, Camilla ended her day in Northern Ireland, visiting an equine therapy organization called Horses for People. Okay, so that was the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall. Then later, we had the Duchess of Cambridge, who visited the Victoria and Albert Museum, which is reopening. So I'm not sure if so there was this period of time in the UK that, like, museums reopened for a hot minute. Like, it was maybe a month. And so there was a series of royal visits to museums that had reopened. But I'm not sure if the Victoria and Albert was one of them or not. But anyway, so today Kate visited and saw the Alice's Adventures in Wonderland exhibit that the V&A has, which is focused on, like, all the different retellings, restylings of Alice in Wonderland. So I thought that was really, really cool. So now we're going to take a quick peek at the court circular. And I'm hoping that there isn't a lot added to things because, yikes. This podcast is going to be long. There was a busy day. Okay, Credence of Ambassador. Oh, it was Wednesday, so Boris Johnson and the Queen held their weekly audience. Here are all of the events from Clarence House. And then also at Kensington Palace, the Duke of Cambridge received the Chief of the General Staff today for, I believe, the Army, or maybe just the military in general. So that is what was going on in the UK. We are skipping Denmark. There was one event, so I'll just briefly share that here. So Queen Margrethe took part in a board meeting of the Queen Margrethe and Prince Henrik Foundation. There's nothing else I can say about that. So from there, we are going to go to the Dutch royal family. In the Netherlands, it is another case of several events. So we have 3 different events. However, there's not a whole lot of detail I can go in on with these just because there isn't that much detail shared. But I will share what I can. So first, we'll start with King Willem-Alexander, who paid a visit to the Royal Netherlands Navy. So he boarded, it's called, like, oh geez, I don't remember now. But it's a ship of the Navy that can do, like, several different things, so it doesn't serve just one purpose. It's not, like, solely an aircraft carrier. It serves, I think, a lot of different purposes, which is good. It's versatile. So, and the focus was really just on, like, the activities of the Navy. So I don't know if King Willem-Alexander is officially Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Like, some are, some royals are, but I'm not sure if he is or not, and I'm having a hard time typing super quickly on my phone, so I'm not going to take the time to research it. But the next military event, I will make a mental note, probably a physical note too, to remember to look up if he is or not. And so they were just discussing, like, general Navy things. And of course, part of that is we can't go into detail because it's national security. So that was the first event. And then also today, Queen Maxima visited the Rotterdam Rijnmond region of the Netherlands to discuss different developments throughout the labor market. So this was in her role as part of the Netherlands Entrepreneurship Committee. And so she took part in 3 different, like, roundtable discussions focusing on different pieces. So, like, she met with business leaders, she met with business leaders and representatives of unions, I think, and then also regional representatives to discuss different initiatives being done and ways to find people work. So that was, that's really cool. And like, I wish sometimes that they would share like more information. So not every country gets it right every time. Like Belgium does a pretty good job some of the time, but then also provides links to research further. Sometimes, but sometimes they don't. And it's kind of the same with the Netherlands. Like sometimes they give really active descriptions and then other times they don't. And same with like the Spanish royal family, and really any royal family does this. I think the easiest to find information on, because they're the most widely talked about, is the British royal family. Like you can find an abundance of articles the minute an event happens, whereas in, like, for example, in Belgium, I can't. I can if I try really hard in the Netherlands, or Belgium or Denmark, or like if I try really hard, I can find kind of the tabloid conversations. They're not tabloids, but like the gossip papers, like the Ola's or the Hellos in the US, the Daily Mail in the UK, like there's a Spanish one, so there's Ola, but then there's also like 3 other Spanish ones, and because I speak Spanish, and read Spanish, I can find those ones really easily. But sometimes events like that aren't widely like shared, and so with Queen Maxima's today, I don't know exactly what was going on, which makes me sad. And then finally, Maxima also held a digital visit to an organization called Humanitas, which is like a national volunteer organization. So you can sign up with this organization and do voluntary work so I don't know if it's like full-time volunteerism or kind of like an AmeriCorps type of thing, or if it's we're going to partner you with different projects so you can go volunteer like a small amount of your time every week or whatever. But that was pretty cool. And I don't love, because I really want this to be over, but I do like that, like today, Queen Maxima was able to do 2 engagements, and I don't know where Humanitas is based, but she was able to do 2 because one of them was an online call. So I like that it's kind of increased capacity, but I'm so ready to not see these people on computer screens. Like, I'm so ready. And I think we've seen so much of it in the past few days, like of this week. It's just been so nice. Like, I don't think there have been that many online, except for Sweden. Sweden is, I swear, going to do online forever, but like they won't. They'll come out of it, but they royally messed up Sweden. The Swedish government messed up big time in the handling of COVID, and so restrictions are being harder now. So that is kind of a bummer, but like also we love it. So I'm just really excited to see like less of the royals through computer screens. I always see them through a computer screen. I think I've said this before. I always see them through a computer screen, but like I don't need 2 computer screens to see them through. So anyway, so that is what was going on in the Netherlands today, and we are skipping Norway because I don't think there was an event. So it's weird because there was an announcement of something, but then the event said it was supposed to happen on the 22nd, so I don't really know what that is all about. So we'll just keep monitoring that for now. So with that, we are going to go ahead and move on to the Spanish royal family. Spain is another country where there's just a lot going on. So we're just going to just talk very quickly about the events. Not quickly, but like we're going to talk about the events. And I'm going to try and keep it fairly base level, because even though I have a elementary understanding of what's going on, it's not like a full understanding that I could give a brief on it. And also that's not what this podcast is about. But I might mention it briefly because I've now been really weird and evasive. So I talked about this yesterday. There's a situation going on between Morocco and a Spanish autonomous community that is technically on mainland. It is on mainland Africa. It's not technically there. It is. And it seems to still be gaining a lot of momentum. So it has been described as like Spain's kind of biggest diplomatic crisis in a couple of, like, at least in a decade. And it's not getting a lot of international attention. And I don't know that it should yet. I will say that. Like, I don't know that it should. But of course, even if it should, it's not going to, because we have Israel and Palestine just destroying each other every night. Which I have so many thoughts on, but like this podcast doesn't cover either of those countries. So anyway, and it was rumored, and I think kind of publicly discussed, that King Felipe may be an option to use as like diplomatic conversations between the King of Morocco, who we've talked about. So he's in like a semi-autonomous or a semi-constitutional monarchy. So he like gets to appoint the powers that be. So it's really his government. And so Felipe has a pretty good relationship with King Mohammed the 6th or 5th. I'm not exactly sure which. And so hopefully the two of them can come to some sort of diplomatic understanding, because this has potential to get ugly much faster, because Spain, being part of the EU, the EU is pretty intense about it. So the EU is doing a lot because it's the EU, because that's where the European border starts. And so that's becoming an interesting dynamic. But anyway, that has it has something to do with like one of the events, kind of, but not really. So today, first thing this morning, in Spain world, it was 10 a.m., so it's kind of early. So King Felipe and Queen Letizia attended the official opening of the International Tourism Fair in Madrid. So it's called like FITUR. It's FITUR, and it's Feria International de Turismo, which is International Tourism Fair. And I'm not surprised. I knew Spain was going to rely on tourism. They have to. So like a large chunk of their GDP is tourism based, and a large chunk of their employment is tourism based, which is the key here, really. Because I was reading something that like in 2019, Spain was like the second most visited country, which makes me feel very basic because it's where I want to go. But that's okay. I don't care. I still want to go. And so it is really heavily visited, and there are a lot of different places you can go in Spain. So there's a lot of different like beaches and climates, and you can experience kind of every part of the European climate in one country, which is interesting. So people who want to go to the Mediterranean will sometimes choose Spain. Like it's just a lot of variation. Plus there's the Canary Islands. So there's just like a lot of different options. And so it is, if they can get it under control, it is Spain's foolproof way of growing their economy. And so this year, the fair is focused on bringing, what's it called? The theme of this year is tourism is back, which it's not really yet, but that's fine. We'll let them go with it. It's kind of okay. And so this is a pretty big deal. King Felipe and Queen Letizia go to this every year. Last year, I think it was just Queen Letizia, and it was held... No, it was not this one. But, like, it was held maybe in January. So typically it's something that's held early on in the year. Of course, this year it was postponed because of COVID. Like, let's get everything kind of under control. We'll get to the summer where things feel comfortable for a while and go into tourism season. There is rumor of Spain kind of opening up to tourists in June. I don't think a lot of that has been announced yet. I know I checked, there's a site that the Spanish government has, and I like to just check. I can't go to Spain yet. Still don't have my passport. Like, can't do that. Nor can I just pick up and fly across the world yet. Someday maybe. But right now I cannot. And U.S. citizens, like, we still can't go to Spain, which is fine. But, like, a lot of places can. I think they're still kind of blacklisted in the UK, but that's subject to change as they're getting their COVID cases down and vaccination rates up. Now that they're reaching, like, an easier vaccination age where people can get themselves to the hospital that they need to go to, like, it should all be going up and up. So that was their day. They visited different booths. The featured country, there's always a featured country. The featured country was Georgia, which is seeming to make the rounds on, like, my Google ads too. Particularly if I'm on a Spanish, like, news site or something. So concentrated effort from the country of Georgia to get Spanish people into their country. Really interesting. They also visited, like, I don't know that they visited all 17 autonomous community booths, but they visited the Ceuta, which is the mainland Africa autonomous community being affected by Morocco. And I think the president of the autonomous community was there. Also, Spain has a problem with, like, too many cooks in the kitchen at the moment. Like, too many people are involved in the operation of this diplomatic crisis. So that was a show of a sign of support for the autonomous community, which, of course, they're supporting the community. It's not, like, this isn't a thing you pick sides on. I mean, if you're Spanish, you're Spanish, right? Like, this isn't the rest of the world watching Israel and Palestine. So that was the first event. And then also today, Queen Letizia attended the special celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Istanbul Convention, which is something that was held 10 years ago in Istanbul, focused on kind of creating, like, a global declaration against preventing and combating gender violence and domestic violence. So violence against women, and also domestic violence. So, this is something, like, Queen Letizia has received an award, maybe more, for sure one, that, like, highlights her importance in this role and highlighting the critical nature of domestic violence and gender violence problems, which is, like, a rampant problem in Spain. And so it was held by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and so Queen Letizia gave, like, brief opening remarks. This woman, okay, I try and keep my Letizia fangirling down, but, like, she impresses me so much every day. And also, she was a journalist, so, like, she just can do this because she's trained to, like, she's educated to, but it's not very often that she does speeches on the fly all the time. They're always in Spanish. Today, she did a speech on the fly in English. Like, I'm sure it wasn't completely on the fly, but, like, she did not have prepared remarks. And for those who, like, don't know, Queen Letizia did not grow up learning English. Like, it wasn't a childhood language. At some point in adult life, she probably did have to learn it. So maybe in, like, secondary school or, like, the baccalaureate part of education. So I think when she married into the royal family, she had, like, a base knowledge of English. But I don't know that she was comfortable using it very often. Even still, sometimes she'll, like, not know a word or not have the correct, like, tone and response. And I say this as, like, a native English speaker. It happens to me in Spanish. I absolutely get, like, things wrong all the time. But it is always impressive to me when she does, like, remarks like that off the fly anyway, but then to do them in a language that, yes, she has known probably for over 20 years now, but still, like, if you're not growing up using that language, it is really hard. So, like, I have had a base level understanding of Spanish probably since I was, well, this is horrifying. It's been over 10 years. And it's actually probably closer to 15. Yeah, it'll be 15 years, like, this summer is when I started Spanish, and we started middle school for us. And so I had, like, a very fundamental understanding of Spanish and have continued that. I took Spanish all throughout. And so, like, when I restarted learning Spanish as an adult, because I took years off, I had, like, that still fundamental thing. But for me to come up with words that match the situation is still really hard. So I'm, like, endlessly impressed. And also just, like, Letizia fangirl all the way sometimes. So anyway, those were the two events. The foreign minister was there. This poor foreign minister has, like, a lot of things happening all the time. But, like, this situation is pretty intense and requires a lot of her time. So, like, she was not outside to greet Queen Letizia. She did walk her out, but, like, she was not outside to greet her. She, like, came in last minute, did the thing, walked Letizia out, and went back, and I think she either gave her press conference right after, and it was not focused on the event that just happened. So there's just, like, a lot happening. And I just felt really bad for her because, I mean, it's her job and she's really good at it, but it's a lot. So anyway, those were the things going on in Spain. I know I just talked a lot about that, but it's all really important stuff. So with that, I'm going to end this episode. There were some things going on in Sweden. They gave me no details, so I'm just going to read them to you. So today, King Carl Gustaf took part in the digital meeting for the WWF. Queen Sylvia took part in a digital meeting for the World Childhood Foundation Executive Committee, and Crown Princess Victoria continued her participation in the CBOS conference. Okay, that's what we've got. So with that, I'm going to end this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Please check out all the things, dailyroyal.com, dailyroyal on Instagram. Like and review the podcast, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great Thursday. Bye.